On this channel that you're watching right now, this channel that you know you're watching right now because obviously you're watching it, you don't need me to inform you of what you're actually seeing. We cover racial issues a lot, and this isn't because this is something that I'm particularly obsessed with. It's because it's something that our culture's obsessed with, and I want to talk about it because it's really everywhere and prevalent, and I think that my take isn't being represented as much as it should be in the broader media. And one of the ways that we discuss this topic, one of the things that we go into, is in terms of economics, the supply and demand issue when it comes to racialized incidents. Because there is exceedingly high demand for racist incidents in this country and worldwide. People want more racist stuff to happen because they want to talk about it, because a lot of people have invested their entire lives into fighting racism. And what happens when you actually succeed in your goal? You have nothing to do. You're bored, and then you need to look for some other path, some other excuse for why your life isn't going the way you want it to go. And a perfect example of this supply not meeting demand issue is a recent incident that I heard from Devin Tracy, by the way. Atheism is Unstoppable over on censored.tv. Sign up, promo code AIU. Yes, it's been a while since I promoted him. And this is related to hockey, where allegedly, theoretically, and hypothetically, a player supposedly used a racialized gesture against a black hockey player. Now, hockey is overwhelmingly a white sport, so obviously the demand for racist incidents in hockey has been surging of late. But we're going to explain this incident. We're going to talk about why this is a hoax on the other side of this ad. But first, we got to talk about your health and your skin. Collagen powders are very popular among fitness influencers, and there's a reason for that. These people know that although collagen is one of the most abundant proteins in your body, when you start to run out of it, when you start to produce less of it, your skin starts breaking down. You start seeing those visible signs of aging. And I've started taking collagen in my morning inside my coffee to make sure that my skin gets itty bitty baby soft. And the collagen that I take, I get over at healthwithjustice.com. If you get over on this website, you will be able to get 51% off. It's pretty simple, pretty basic. A scoop a day keeps your skin itty bitty baby soft, just like mine. Don't you wish you had the softest skin in the world, like I literally softest skin in the world do have? Healthwithjustice.com. So I want to excuse any of my ignorance later on in this video by telling you up front that I don't know a lot about hockey. And the reason I don't know a lot about hockey is because hockey is very popular in places like Canada, and I consider Canada the enemy to the north, and I do not want to learn anything about Canadian culture, nor do I want to learn about the goofy sports that are popular in that nation. But because hockey is a ice-related sport, this tends to mean that the players in hockey happen to be overwhelmingly white. Now, for normal people, the racial makeup of hockey or any other sport is a non-problem. It's a non-issue, unless there is a literal barrier preventing people from playing in the sport, like there used to be in baseball before Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier. It shouldn't be seen as a big deal. But because we don't have similar standards, because people get angry about racial makeup in one direction, hockey has been targeted by a campaign labeling it racist just due to the fact that there are white people in hockey. This criticism is never levied against the NBA, even though members of the NBA do promote organizations that are racist. There's a bunch of people who support Louis Farrakhan in the NBA, but that's not a big deal. We don't want to talk about that. We need to talk about hockey and those white people playing sports, because I don't know if you know this, but white people are racist, and white people being good at sports is also racist. So obviously, there's systematic structures of systematic racism against minorities in hockey just because there's more whites in hockey than black people. This does not apply to the NBA, and even though sports typically unite people, I mean, look at all the states that are a part of the former Confederacy that have NBA teams or NFL teams that love the players on those NBA teams or NFL teams. Forget about that. Ignore that. What we're going to talk about is the evil racism in hockey.
Who want to begin in the hockey world? The East Coast Hockey League has now suspended player Jacob Panetta for making an apparent racist gesture at fellow Canadian player Jordan Subban.
So the incident in question did not take place in the NHL. It was called a professional hockey league in the news articles, but I have never heard of it. But I'm just going to say, sure, it's a professional hockey league. And it involved players Jacob Panetta and Jordan Subban. And this was a normal occurrence by all accounts on the hockey ice, or is it called the court? I guess it's called the ice. where these two players were getting into it, they were about to fight, and then the referees separated these two players because, you know, they don't want them to fight, even though people go to hockey games, presumably, to watch these Canadians beat the crap out of each other. However, at some point, Jacob Panetta used a gesture in order to mock Jordan Subin, and then all hell broke loose. Jordan broke free from the referee and started attacking Jeffrey, and we didn't really understand why this was happening if we were out there in the audience at the time. Because what was alleged to have happened by Jordan was that Jeffrey, for no reason, used a racialized gesture meant to imitate a monkey to mock him, and that's what set him off, so that's when he went over to punch him in the face. This is what is alleged to have happened. However, the footage from the game didn't really capture what was alleged to have happened, so we just had to take this person's word for it. And for those of you who are unaware, the Jordan character in this is a black man, the Jeffrey guy is a white guy, so you understand why most of the people blew this incident up, and they all stood with Jordan. On top of that, apparently Jordan has a brother that plays for the NHL, so that guy was talking about the racialized incident that happened to him. This whole situation blew up. It got all kinds of crazy, and then it turned out it was nothing at all. Now, to be clear, there actually is, if you look it up on the internet.com, incidents of racialized gestures in the sport of hockey, specifically in international hockey. There was one very famous one from a couple of months ago in the Ukraine. You can look it up. I'm not going to play it because I actually think it's bad enough that YouTube will demonetize it. However, Jacob Panetta makes the case that in this specific incident, he was using a taunt that he typically uses when people challenge him to a fight while they're being held behind by the referee. And in this instance, he says that this was not targeted at him because he was black. This is something that he used against what he calls non-racialized players in the past, but what he means is white players.
My name is Jacob Panetta, and I would like to address the incident that happened between the South Carolina Stingrays this past Saturday in the East Coast Hockey League. Jordan Subin and I were talking in a heated manner when the linesman got between us. When the linesman was between us, I said to him, "You're only tough once the refs get involved." And I did a tough guy bodybuilder-like gesture towards him. I've made the same bodybuilder gesture to non-racialized players a number of times when there have been on-ice confrontations. There's video from previous games which demonstrate this.
Now, at first, I was going to laugh for a few minutes at the phrase non-racialized players, and I did, off air, before I was recording this video, but then I thought about what he was saying, and in reality, when he made those taunts against white players, that wasn't racialized. This was racialized externally, so maybe, just maybe, I was selling this hockey player down the river, because he's actually accurate in his reporting that these were non-racialized players when he did it to non-black players. Because what this taunt is supposed to be like a tough guy taunt, right? And it gets misinterpreted as apparently like a gorilla thing or some kind of an ape thing, and it was misinterpreted by Jordan, hence his angry reaction, hence his quote after the fact. However, when these players were in the locker room later on, they talked about what went on, and Jacob made it very clear what he was doing on the ice.
My actions towards Jordan were not because of race and were not intended as a racial gesture. I did not contemplate at the time that it would be perceived by some as a racial gesture, and I attempted to convey this to Jordan when we were sent to the dressing room during the game.
So in reasonable times, in a normal situation, when you get angry about something that happens in the heat of the moment and you talk it out after the fact, you let it go. In normal times, you admit, okay, I reacted in a way because I thought this was something else, but now I realize in context that there's video of this guy using that same exact taunt against other white players in the league, so I'm gonna say my bad for assuming and presuming it was racially motivated, but you know, stuff happens in hockey, people fight, it's pretty normal, so even though that wasn't happening, he was still mocking me, so I'm fine with the fight or whatever. But instead of doing that, because Jordan is in a semi-pro league, because he's not getting any kind of attention like this, and because there is demand for victimized black hockey players, victimized by evil white racist hockey players, he has doubled down on this. He's got his brother involved, and everybody in the media is bringing on old black hockey players to talk about how enough is enough and this needs to stop. And this player, Jacob Panetta, even though he has a legitimate explanation that is backed up by supporting evidence, needs to be suspended from his team indefinitely to teach people a lesson that you should never not actually do anything racist towards a black person, that a black person can wrongfully misinterpret as racist, and that will teach you something about morality or racism or something or other.
Now, a warning here, the following may be distressing for some viewers, but
now I found this CBC segment that is covering this instance, and I hesitate to call it a news segment because the word news should not apply to what is going on in this segment. It's just whining and whinging, and everything about it is just hilarious, even down to the guy who's presenting it, who's trying to be very, very serious about what he's talking about, despite the fact that, and maybe this is just a style of eyebrow that is popular among Canadian newscasters, his eyebrows are not lining up with the serious expression that he's trying to portray on the screen. And what's great about this is he actually gives this gesture, which by the way has a perfectly legitimate explanation, a content advisory warning. He wants you to know that you may be disturbed by the gesture, which has a reasonable explanation, but not by the violence that occurs as normal in a hockey game. The fighting and the guys trying to beat the crap out of each other, no big deal. But the gesture with the reasonable explanation, a weightlifting gesture, the, oh, you're a tough guy in the gym, but not on the ice gesture, no, that's too much. You need a warning.
Jordan Subban tweeted his reaction to the incident after the game. He said, quote, "More like Panetta was too much of a coward to fight me," he says, "and as soon as I began to turn my back, he started making monkey gestures at me. So I punched him in the face multiple times," says Subban again, "and he turtled like the coward he is."
And then he follows it up by bringing a former black NHL player to talk about how this kid should be suspended for life, who actually tweeted initially that this young man should be suspended from hockey for life.
Listen, I want to begin with your tweet about this incident because you have gone on social media. You asked the question, when is this ever going to end? Suspend that kid for life. Talk to us about your initial reaction, your reaction now after seeing the cell phone video circulating.
Well, the thing is, with Boko, what happened with Boko Imama was just a couple days ago, where the guy got punished 30 games. So this went around the world. In the hockey world, it's a small world, so I'm pretty sure every players knew about it. So now that you're just composing what just happened and how, we think that, hockey is going the right direction, suspension or stiffer, a couple days later, another racial incident happened. I couldn't believe it.
Now, I just want to point out, I just want to say this, and I just want to make this clear. I'm tired of people saying, I can't believe it, I can't believe this is happening, when the thing that they're talking about actually didn't happen. There is a legitimate explanation for the thing that they're talking about, and they're actively choosing to ignore that legitimate explanation, to ignore that information, because they want to believe it. I'm sure this guy had a stellar NHL career. I've never heard of him, but again, I've never heard of hockey. Canada, you know how I feel about you and your sports. But this guy is not being brought out except for segments like this or something related to his team if he was a champion or anything like that. They're not calling on him to give his perspective on what's going on in the league. He doesn't look like a play-by-play guy. Maybe he's a color commentator, and I mean color commentator as in the former athlete that's in the booth. You racist that actually saw the word color in my sentence and got offended. How dare you? Maybe he does that. Again, I have no context for this guy, but the reason they're bringing him on CBC, the reason he's given this level of gravitas, is because it's a racialized incident, so they want to find an older black player to come in and say, wow, hockey was racist when I was around. I thought we were going in the right direction, but I can't believe this incident that I am choosing to believe despite all rational and reasonable explanations to the contrary.
When I saw that, even though it's another league, ECHL, which is a professional league too, I was like, that's why I'm wondering, when is it going to end? Because 30 games is not enough. What's going to be the next step? That's why I'm like, you know what? This cannot be going on like this and stuff. So just suspend the guy for life. Get him out of the league. Show everyone that you don't want this anymore, that in 2022, We don't want that.
So here we have a former NHL player demanding that this taunt, that again, I have to emphasize it over and over again, that he's choosing to believe is a racial incident, but in reality is just not a racial incident. He's going off the feelings of this player, should be suspended for life. His career should be ended. He should be barred from the ECHL, which is a professional hockey league. See, I told you guys, I didn't know a lot, but it was probably professional according to the reporting. This guy needs to go because he needs to show everybody that it's current year, and in current year, we're not going to tolerate non-racial gestures that are used against white players constantly by this same person that context completely explains away that was misinterpreted by this black player. We're not going to tolerate any of that explanation. We are going to go after any racism, whether imagined or imagined, because it's all imagined in this incident and most of the incidents that we're talking about. It's absolutely crazy that you're given a platform on the news. You're not covering the other side of this. You're not even mentioning the explanation. You're not even considering it. And you're doing so because people want to believe, and more importantly, people are invested in other people buying into the idea that hockey is just flooded with evil white racism. There's a lot of white people playing professionally in the sport of hockey. Therefore, hockey must be anti-black. It must be racist because look at all those white people. Here's our evidence, a gesture that has a reasonable explanation. We're not going to take that into account because it's 2022. Suspend this guy for life.
I was confused after the incident until I saw and told how people viewed it because of the players involved. I want to reiterate that no racial slurs, noises, or anything of like were said by me during the incident. I see now from Jordan's reaction that he and others certainly viewed it as a racial gesture, and that my actions have caused a great deal of anger and upset to Jordan, his family, and countless others. I want to express to everyone, and especially Jordan, that my actions were not racially motivated at all. And I sincerely apologize for the pain and suffering and anger that my actions have caused him, his family, and everyone who was hurt by this. However unintentional my actions were, I acknowledge the impact of my gesture and will commit to better understand the impact going forward.
Now, obviously, the hockey team in question that employs Jacob Panetta, having heard Jacob Panetta's explanation, having understood because they are his team and seen him do this gesture multiple different times to non-black players, that it was nothing racialized at all, having understood his apology and its sincerity for hurting the feelings of this guy because that was clearly not his intention, summarily suspended this guy from the team and completely disassociated with them despite all of those facts.
I know he got suspended indefinitely, but I'd be surprised to see him play another game this year.
I'm sorry, but this is just ridiculous in every way. Everybody should know, or they're in denial about it, or they're being dishonest about it, that this was a non-incident. Everybody should know that you should be able to tell Jordan that he was wrong in his interpretation of this gesture. However, they're treating this guy like he's made of glass, and they can't ever correct his feelings about a situation, despite the overwhelming evidence to the contrary. And they're sacrificing this guy, who did nothing wrong in this scenario, who still apologized anyway because he was so hurt by the idea that he would have hurt the feelings of somebody else, who, by the way, tried to physically fight him after the fact and before the fact, and yet they are going to sacrifice him anyway to give the appearance, the illusion, that they're fighting racism in hockey. There is not enough racial incidents for them to take a stand against, so they're going to take this non-racial incident and then take a major stand against it. It's absurd in every way, but what do you expect when the woke have taken over? What do you expect when people put feelings over reality constantly in this nation and across all these Western nations? But hey, those are just my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. Do you think this guy should have been suspended based on the misperceptions of a black player? Do you think that everybody's reaction to this is totally false? Who is more in the wrong? The black guy who initially felt that way about the gesture, or the team who knew for a fact that he did nothing wrong and yet they still got rid of him? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments below. If you like this video, you can show me by leaving a like. You can subscribe for more content. Follow me on all my social medias. You can support me via the support links also in the description box. This is me talking about a hoax in hockey. Till next time.